Jungkook was sitting in the classroom, pretending to read a book. All the students had already arrived, but Wyan was nowhere to be seen. His eyes drifted towards the door again and again. Then, after a long moment, Wyan entered the classroom. Jungkook's eyes immediately lifted to her. Wyan instantly looked down. She didn't look at anyone else. Not a single person. No glance, no flicker in her eyes, nothing. She walked slowly straight towards the last bench, sitting down, her shoulder drawn in, her head lower. Jungkook's eyes stay on her, studying every action, every reaction, every posture in deep silence. Without saying a word, he stood up and quietly walked towards her desk, then sat down beside her. One immediately startled, shock flashed across her face as she looked at him with wide, stunned eyes. But Jungkook didn't seem bothered at all. He acted casual, as if nothing unusual had happened. All the students' eyes turned towards them. Shock spread across the classroom as they saw Jungkook suddenly sitting on the last bench beside Wyan. Wyan looked at Jungkook with nervous eyes and whispered in a trembling voice, "Why are you here? This isn't your seat." Jungkook didn't even look at her. He replied casually, his voice deep, "Why? The seat belongs to no one, so it doesn't matter if I sit here." Wyan's heart began to race. She glanced towards Shumi, who was staring at her with a dark, hardened expression. Wyan didn't know what to do anymore. Her heart beat in her chest. She looked back at Jungkook and said in a pleading voice, "Please go back to your seat. This isn't yours. You don't even sit on the last bench." This time Jungkook turned to her. His eyes were soft yet deep. "But now I want to," he said quietly. "I want to sit here." Wyan opened her mouth to respond, but before she could say anything, the teacher entered the classroom. Not knowing what else to do, she let out a small sigh, biting her lower lip. Her heart was still racing, her palm damp with sweat. From time to time Jungkook stole glances at Wyan, who sat stiffly beside him, her hands trembling in her lap. He noticed everything. Every nervous movement, every shaky breath. Without her realizing it, his chest tightened, knowing all this was happening because of him. And silently he made up his mind. He would fix everything. The teacher cleared his thought and said, "So students, in the last class I already talked about the project. Have you decided on your project partners?" "Yes, sir," all the students replied together. The teacher nodded. His eyes landed on Jungkook. A smile appeared on his face. "All right then, let's start with Jungkook," he said warmly. "Tell me, who have you chosen as your partner?" Jungkook stayed quiet for a moment. Slowly his eyes moved to Wyan. She still hadn't looked up. Her face was buried in her notebook. Then Jungkook looked back at teacher and said in a deep voice, "My partner will be Wyan." A loud gasp. All the students turned towards Jungkook with wide, shocked eyes. Whispers erupted from every corner of the classroom. Shumi froze. Her eyes widened as she stared at Jungkook, disbelief written all over her face. The color drained from her expression. Her jaw tightened as if she couldn't accept what she had just heard. Wyan, on the other hand, felt her heart drop. She immediately looked at Jungkook, who looked completely casual, as if he said nothing unusual. The teacher smiled and nodded. Okay, he said. I hope you will score the highest mark again this time, just like last time. Jungkook didn't respond. Wan, however, turned towards him, her voice desperate and shaken. Why did you take my name? I'm not your partner. Jungkook looked at her calmly. I already made you my partner. I just informed the teacher. Wan closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Jungkook, please try to understand. She said softly, why are you doing all this? I don't want to be your partner. Jungkook looked away, then replied casually, but I want you to be. He turned back to her, a faint teasing tone in his voice. And I have already told the teacher, you can't change it now. Wan didn't know what to do anymore. Her palms were sweating, her mind spinning in confusion. Everything felt messy, overwhelming. She couldn't think straight at all. Wan was sitting in the library, surrounded by the pile of books, her eyes fixed on the page as she tried to understand what she was reading. She was so deeply buried on her work that she didn't notice anyone approaching her. Suddenly Jungkook came over and sat down in the chair across from her. She didn't even look up. In a soft but deep voice he spoke. This equation isn't right, he said, looking at her notebook. Wan immediately lifted her head. Her eyes widened in shock the moment she saw him. Instinctively, she started looking around, across her face, checking if anyone had noticed them together. While she kept glancing around nervously, Jungkook's gaze stayed fixed on her. His deep eyes calmly followed her every movement, watching her fear in silence. Slowly he reached forward, took her notebook and said, come, I'll solve this for you. One finally looked at him properly. You are here? He asked, her voice filled with quiet curiosity. He made her eyes. Did you forget? We are project partners. We need to prepare the project together. Why did you make me your partner? She asked quickly. You never choose anyone. Then why me now? Jungkook looked at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, because now I want to. Wan shook her head immediately. But you didn't even ask me, she said, her voice trembling. I don't want to be your partner. I'm not even participating in this project. Jungkook let out a soft sigh. He already knew that. He knew she usually avoided projects, knew she struggled, knew she never scored well. His voice turned firm, cold, and controlled. I have already told the teacher. Our names are written. It can't be changed now. He paused, then added, so it's better we prepare for it. As he spoke, he began pulling out books and arranging them on the table. Wan sat there silently, her hand clenched in her lap. After a long while, it was already 4 o'clock. Almost all the students had left the library, leaving the place unusually quiet. Only Wan and Jungkook were still there, focused on their project. Wan was completely absorbed in her work. Her brows were frown in concentration as she tried to solve the problem in front of her. Jungkook glanced towards her, his eyes lingering on her face. A small pout formed on her lips as she struggled with the equation. From time to time she bit her lower lip and sometimes she made a tiny frustrated faces whenever she got stuck. Each of those little expressions made his heart flutter every single time. Without realizing what he was doing, Jungkook slowly raised his hand and gently tugged a loose strand of her hair behind her ear. Wine immediately looked up at him. Confusion flashed across her face, and her heart began to race as her eyes met his intense gaze. Then her eyes shifted to the clock. It was already 4. She gasped softly. She was already late for her part-time job. Without thinking twice, Wine hurry began to packing her bag. Jungkook straightened sadly. "What happened?" he asked. "It's very late," she said quickly. "I have to go." "Come," Jungkook replied calmly. "I'll drop you." Wine's eyes widened. No, she couldn't go with him, not when she was heading to her part-time job. She shook her head immediately. "No." Jungkook frowned deeper. "What's wrong?" "I have a bike. I can drop you." She shook her head again, her voice trembling. "It's not needed. I can go by myself." She stood up and started to walk away. But Jungkook stood up immediately at the same time. Before she could take another step, he caught her waist and pulled her back straight into him. Her breath hissed. His hand slid naturally to her waist, holding her close. Wan's heart slammed against her chest as Jungkook leaned down slightly, his breath faintly brushing her face, his eyes with intensity. "I said I can drop you," he said in a deep, firm voice. "Why are you making things difficult?" Wan looked down, her words stuck in her throat. After a moment, she lifted her gaze slowly and said softly, "I'm not going home. I'm going to my part-time job." Jungkook studied her for a brief moment, then nodded casually. "Then come, I'll drop you at your workplace." He released her, turned around and started walking away as if it were the most normal thing in the world. One stood frozen. He hadn't looked down on her. He hadn't even discussed it, not even for a second. Instead, something warm fluttered inside her chest, making her heart race all over again. Quickly she turned and followed after Jungkook, like a lost puppy chasing the only person it trusted. The door opened and Jungkook stepped inside. Mr. Jun looked up at him, shock flashing across his face. His eyes widened, almost brimming, before he immediately stood up. "Son, you are here?" he said in a stern voice. Jungkook rarely came to the office unless it was absolutely necessary. Jungkook stopped across the desk and gave a small note. "You came so suddenly," Mr. Jeon continued. "You could have called me." Jungkook stayed quiet for a moment, then finally spoke. "Actually, I'm here for something important." Mr. Jeon nodded at once. "Yes, tell me what happened. Do you need something?" Jungkook nodded slowly. Then in a deep, cold voice he said, "I want something from you." Mr. Jeon paused. Jungkook never asked for anything. This was the first time he was asking something from him. He nodded immediately and said, "Of course," he said gently. "Just tell me what you want." Jungkook looked at him silently for a moment. "Silly, you are doing it wrong again. It's not like that," Jungkook said in a deep yet soft voice. He took the paper from her and began solving it himself. One pouted. She looked up at his face and said, I already did well. It's you who doesn't like anything, she said, her cheek puffed slightly. Jungkook looked at her quietly for a moment, then shook his head. He placed the notebook back in front of her and said, Look, this is where you went wrong. One stared at the paper and gasped. Then she lowered her gaze and said softly, I didn't notice it. It's just. Jingo came closer and leaned over the paper. You should do it like this, he said, patiently explaining each point. Wan's heart started racing. Jungkook was so close, his voice calm, focused, and gentle as he explained everything so perfectly. When he finished, he looked at her and asked, Did you understand now? Wan nodded immediately and started solving it exactly the way he showed her. After finishing, he handed it to him and asked, Is it correct? Jungkook checked it and then nodded. Yes, they are correct. You did it well. A rare smile appeared on his face. He raised his hand and started patting her head very softly, gently ruffling her hair. Somehow Wan's heartbeat started racing. She gulped, her thought feeling tight. Day by day she was falling for him more, without even realizing it. Unable to hold his gaze any longer, she quickly broke eye contact. In a shaky voice, she said, I have to go. I have class. She stood up immediately and hurried away, her heart racing. Behind her, Jungkook let out a low, soft chuckle. Shaking his head sadly, he watched her retreating figure, his eyes filled with quiet amusement at her adorable reaction. Wan suddenly stopped him. She gently pulled her hand back and asked, "Why did you say that?" Jungkook turned to her, his expression calm. "Say what?" he replied so casually as if he didn't understand. Taking a deep breath, Wan gathered her courage. "You told everyone I'm your girlfriend. Why?" He sighed softly. "I'm sorry about that, but I thought it would be best." "Best?" She frowned. "You know Shumi. She will—" Jungkook let out a low chuckle. "Do you really think she has the courage to say anything to my girlfriend?" One fell silent. She didn't know what to say. "But it's not true," she whispered. Jungkook stepped closer. Too close. One instinctively stepped back, her heart racing. She took a deep breath, his voice lowering. "One, I have wanted to tell you this for a long time. I just didn't have the courage." He paused, then looked straight into her eyes. "Will you be my girlfriend?" Her breath hissed. "What?" Jungkook stepped even closer now, closing every inch of distance between them. "I love you," he said honestly. "I have loved you for a long time, and I wanted this for real. Will you be my girlfriend?" His eyes held nothing but sincerity, so raw it made her heart ache. Vine looked down, her hands shaking. "Please don't say things like that," she mumbled. "I'm not your standard. I can't be. I'm not good enough for you." Before she could step away, Jungkook gently took her hands and pulled her closer. One hand rested firmly on her waist. Instinctively, one placed her other hand on his shoulder to steady herself. His voice was deep, calm, and unwavering. "You are more than perfect to me, more than anyone ever could be." One shallowed, her throat tight. She looked up at him with trembling eyes. Are you really telling the truth?" A soft, deep chuckle escaped Jungkook. "Do you really think I'm in a mood of joke about this?" Silence crashed between them. Finally one spoke, her voice barely audible. I have loved you too, for a long time. Like every other girl, I had a crush on you, but knowing you are so out of my league, I have never approached you like that. I never had an intention to get closer to you for that's more than enough." Jungkook interrupted gently. "More than enough for me to make you my girlfriend." One stared at him with wide, toy-like eyes, so pure it made Jungkook's heart flutter uncontrollably. Unable to hold himself, he leaned in and softly pressed his lips against hers. Wan's eyes widened, her body frozen. Jungkook pulled back slowly, a soft smile playing on his lips. "So, what do you say?" "I'm waiting." Wan flinched. Then after a long, quiet moment, she nodded slowly. Jungkook smiled, wide, genuine, and pulled her into his arms. "Never think like that again," he said firmly. "You are mine now. And no one will say anything to you, I promise." One smiled softly against his chest, feeling safe, protected, and wrapped securely in his arms, as if the world could no longer touch her anymore.